Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to talk a little bit about the good old difficulty conversation. And there's a couple reasons I want to talk about this. Number one, I've been playing MMOs for 20 years. And this is not a new conversation, okay? This is something that people have been talking about for a long ass time. They talked about it with Guild Wars. They talked about it with Guild Wars 2, with World of Warcraft, all of them. And every single time, people fall into two categories. One, get good, you suck. Two, the game's too hard. Okay, I don't suck, the game's too hard. So I kind of want to give my general take as far as that's concerned. And number two, I have anxiety. I've seen a lot of people bring that up, especially on the forums and in YouTube comments. Well, I have really anxiety. I don't like doing stuff that's hard. I kind of want to just give my general perspective on playing difficult content when you have something like that you need to deal with. It's hard in regular life. Let's talk about this. Is it hard or not? So the other day, I finished all 4 of the normal raid bosses, and I think we had maybe 10 or 11 wipes. When I say we, that's me and a bunch of random people, because I didn't play with anybody that I know. Numerically, I didn't think that seemed too bad. And honestly, I wouldn't have guessed that this was a discussion in the first place until I saw it online. I didn't think the fights were particularly bad. I didn't think there was really anything unique about them. The honeybee fight was probably the most difficult just because it kind of looked weird and it was a little fast paced and there's a couple things going on at the same time. But overall, I didn't really think that the difficulty was that bad. And that's just me personally. I understand. It's normal. Everybody should be able to do it. I didn't really think the fights were that bad. I didn't think they were unique. I thought it was pretty run-of-the-mill, standard Final Fantasy XIV normal raid boss fight difficulty. So number 2, and this is where we really get into it, is overcoming a challenge, right? And this is just about not just Final Fantasy, but in life in general. And this is really touching on the whole thing with having anxiety and all that kind of thing. So I want you to kind of do a little thought experiment. Think about a time in your life where you didn't think you were going to be able to do something. Maybe, let's say, beat an Elden Ring boss, right? Beat a Dark Souls boss, but you eventually did it. Let me just tell it from my perspective, right? Because this is a specific example that I have. So I went to beat a boss in a Dark Souls game. I was probably, 14 or 15, and I fucking raged. Like, I could not beat it. I got up, I left the game, I left the house, I went on a walk, whatever. And then I came back later and I did it, like first try, right? I had so much fun reminiscing on that challenge that I overcame. I pushed myself to do something that I didn't necessarily feel the most comfortable with. You're getting the opportunity to overcome a challenge, push yourself, do something that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, and it's fun, it's visually stunning, and the music is good. And you know that you have developers that care about you. And if you don't think that you have developers that care about you, I strongly encourage you to go play World of Warcraft or another game where it's like these people are so out of touch. They don't know how to interact with the audience anymore. They've lost that. They don't have that audience connection. They can't do things like a media tour to where people can come in. Nobody's saying that about most games. You know, there's not a lot of games like we got Baldur's Gate and things like that where you like the developers and they seem like they have a healthy relationship with the employees and whatever. We care about each other in the Final Fantasy community. And that's why I play the game, right? Is because I don't have to be involved in such toxic shit. But whenever you go and you run over to the forums, and instead of trying to better yourself, instead of trying to overcome a challenge, instead of trying to grow as a player, you just complain, you are being the toxic community member. It's you. Learn how to start a dialogue. Learn how to open a conversation about something instead of just being like, well, fuck this, I hate it. Not everybody's going to be like Xeno, right? Not everybody's going to be a rank 1 player. Not everybody's going to have the time to dedicate themselves to that. But I can promise you this. Xeno does not care about how he plays in comparison to you. Xeno cares about how he plays in comparison to himself. Somebody that plays at that level is somebody that got in there and fucked up over and over and over and over again, because that is how you improve. That is how you get better. And it's also how you end up going on these endless rants about Dark Knight sucks and it's a shitter job and you lose all your hair, and then that makes people like me wonder, like, what about my scalp? Am I going to end up like that? Is it worth becoming a rank 1 warrior if you're going to be bald? It is, but still, like, Don't worry about how you compare to other people, man. That's my point. To bring it back to reality for a second. This is their parse or anything. Like, don't even worry about that shit, man. That shit doesn't matter. It's a game. We're all here to have fun. Like, genuinely, we all want to have a good time. We all want the community to come up. On the flip side of that, don't kick people when they're down either. Like, don't be a dick. If you don't want to play with somebody, just leave the party and queue up again. You know what I mean? One of my whole points here is that this isn't even really worth having a discussion about that's in this cadence. It's more of a fun conversation that we can have. Like, hey, do you think the game is hard? I don't know. And it's less of a thing where it needs to be ranted about. So I think it's kind of silly. But the last thing I want to talk about is, how do you become a better player? And I genuinely do have a couple of good tips that are going to help you be not only better at Final Fantasy, but better at video games in general. I remember I had this friend, and growing up, he would always just destroy games way faster than me, like the Dark Souls series, going back to that. He would beat the game maybe 2 or 3 times faster than I would. And I would get so mad. But eventually I ate my pride and I went up to him and I'm like, hey bro, like, how are you so good? And he's like, the thing that I do in every game is I just learn how to move my character better. And I started noticing after that when I watch pro players, you know, whether it be somebody like Shroud or somebody like Arthur's or whatever, when you watch them play and they're not doing anything, they're probably just running around in circles or like hopping up on a ledge and hopping off of it or jumping and try to spin their character in a perfect 360. And it's so true for like every single kind of game. It's obvious for games like Dark Souls or Final Fantasy. It's really what you're doing in like every single game, right? It's just you got to move your character. And when you do that and you start thinking about, okay, the way that they programmed movement in the game, that is how you're going to deal with mechanics. So always think about, you know, when you press the W key, how long does it take your character to move? Then when a mechanic happens and there's a small save space, you know exactly how to use your character almost as an extension of yourself to move. The other thing I want to say is stop looking at your hotbar so much. Look at the center of the screen. If you find yourself glancing down, go to the target dummy and just delete your hotbar off your screen. Like open up the HUD, right click it to disable it, and just see how far you can get without even looking. Just a couple of minutes of you doing your abilities without looking. Or maybe just look at the job gauge. Or maybe just take your 60 and 120 second cooldown and throw that on a separate bar and only look at those. And I have the cast bar for the enemy plucked right in the center of the screen at 200% size because I'm blind. I know I can just read the ability when it happens. And whenever that ability happens again, because it will, I already know what's going to be the case. I already know what the mechanic does because I just saw it. Essentially, all that happens is they give you mechanic A, then they give you mechanic B, and then they give you mechanic C, and then they do A and B, and A and C, and then B and C. And then they just enter a loop where it's like, okay, now you're going to get those 2 mechanics at a time over and over and over again. That's kind of just how all Final Fantasy mechanics work, especially until you get to like Savage and Ultimate. And then they've got like A through, you know, Z. So they've got a bunch of shit. But in conclusion, just stop running to the forums, stop running to the comments. Like, let's just have a conversation about it. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. Like, leave a comment down below. Tell me how you feel. I'm not trying to say my point is right or anything like that. I'm just trying to say we can have a conversation before we need to have an argument. And that's the one thing that Final Fantasy has against any other game that I've ever played, is a fantastic community. And I hate seeing people that are like trying to garner all of this attention on themselves because they think that something's wrong with the game, but they never opened a dialogue about it. And you know they haven't. They just ran to the forum and they complain. But yeah, comment down below. Is the game hard? Is it easy? Let me know about a challenge that you had to overcome in your life. Do you struggle with anxiety or something different that I could learn about that maybe I don't realize as I'm making this video? Let me know, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it if you made it this far. This YouTube channel in and of itself is a way for me to challenge myself to do something that I'm not comfortable with. So as always, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.